Will you please pray with me? Good and gracious God, open our hearts and our minds to hear whatever message it is that we need to hear this day. We give you thanks, O God, that you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, we're going to be exploring some stories from different books of the Bible this summer. And we're going to start with the book of Genesis. And we'll be in Genesis for the next couple of weeks. And I was thinking, what better place to start than the first chapter? And finally, I don't know about you, but it feels like we've been waiting forever. But finally, we've actually felt the warmth of the sun over the last several days. And everything is in bloom. What better time of year to celebrate God's creation? Can I hear an amen? Amen. I know, it's gorgeous, isn't it? Well, when we read the creation story, it allows us to see that God's holiness, well, it can be found in every fiber of life. To experience life, to experience nature, is to experience the hand of God. And so Genesis introduces us to our beginning. The book speaks to both those people who hear it literally, believe it happened just the way it was written, and for those who hear it as sacred story, because we know no matter how you hear it, that it reveals a greater truth than worrying about if it's a play-by-play account of what actually happened on what day. It reveals God's delight in all of life, and God's desire for goodness and harmony to come out of the chaos. I think sometimes Christians have a tendency to put so much emphasis into debating the details that we actually lose sight of the message. So you may be sitting out here in the pew or on your computer and asking yourself, why should I put energy into thinking about creation? After all, Pastor Meg, I have bigger issues to worry about right now. Some of you have health concerns, and others of you have major life decisions to make, or you're trying to manage life and family issues. And the list of things that you have on your plate just feels overwhelming. And contemplating God's creation doesn't really feel like a priority. I get it. And yet sometimes it can be helpful to get outside of our own heads and to focus our attention outside of our little world, our little families, our problems. It can actually be therapeutic to spend some time thinking about bigger issues. Now, you know, as a Christian community, when we celebrate a baptism, we use water, right? And water is the very lifeblood of our planet. So I want you to think for a moment about the children that you come in contact with. Maybe it's children in your family or children in your neighborhood, or maybe it's the children here in your church. And then ask yourself, well, how do I want them to experience creation? And then think back to when you were a child. Did you have a favorite place where you connected to nature? Maybe it was someplace up north or someplace that you went on a family vacation. Or maybe it was just a big tree in your yard. For me, it was a gully that looked something like this. It was near my home, and there was a creek that ran through it. I was talking to Jim last night and said, you know what, I don't think my parents ever saw this place. And if they did, they probably wouldn't have let us hang out there. Anyway, there was a tree that had fallen down across the water, and it made for a kind of a natural bridge, and the water would flow under it, and we would sit on that old tree limb and dangle our feet into the freezing cold water. And it was at that creek that I served communion for the first time. It was a communion of grape pop and Ritz crackers. And somehow my friends tolerated me serving communion to them, probably because I fed them. But reflecting back, I think maybe it was one of the most holy communions that I would ever serve. Don't you think our children need such experiences? I mean, studying biology in school is great, but it's not the same as interacting with the natural world. Or remember lying and staring at the passing clouds and trying to see shapes in them? Or think about when you've seen the ocean waves, or you've observed a bee pollinating. Through all of those experiences, I think we learn reverence, because there is life and there is power in these things that are completely beyond us. They have nothing to do with us. And so we pause and we have reverence for God. So now I need a little congregation participation here. As an adult, do you have a favorite place to connect to nature? Is it your backyard or the edge of a lake? Somebody yell out. Where do you experience God in nature?
Stony Creek Park.
Stony Creek Park. I love it. Where?
My family's been going up to St. Ignace all my life.
Ah, there you go. St. Ignace.
The park behind my home.
Great. The park behind your home. John.
My parents have been going to Kalkaska. They have a cabin up there, and it's right on the lake.
Ah, by the lake up there. Nobody over here has a favorite place now? Yeah, Shannon.
The beach.
The beach. Steve.
Our cabin up in Standish.
Cabin up in Standish.
My backyard.
Your backyard.
Camp Talahi.
Camp Talahi. There you go. Plug for Camp Talahi. So you think about all these places. If you've ever been blessed to go to the Grand Canyon or any national park, you know the feeling of seeing God's creation and all of its splendor, right? It just kind of causes you to pause. And then we reflect on the words, God said it was good. Shouldn't we respond in a similar voice, not only with our praises, but also with our actions? Now, the first sacred story that is found in Genesis, we find God creating, but get this, God created mammals and humans on the same day. Notice humanity we didn't get our own separate day. Because right from the beginning, we were merely a part of a vast and wonderful and complex thing we call creation. The whole of which God, the Creator, declared to be what? Very good. The Word tells us that humans were made in the image of God. So as images of God, we bear a responsibility to represent God within creation. We are to act justly and nobly and with compassion on behalf of the Creator. If we accept that we're made in God's image, then we understand that we've been called to serve as caretakers. We were given dominion, not dominance. God's will, not our will or not our control. Dominion does not mean domination, but it refers to the need for us to actually exercise responsibility, to care for the fragile earth. If you look at that little earth in your envelope, imagine caring for that fragile earth, because we know that all things were created to be interdependent. Now, in the second creation story, which we didn't read today, God commands Adam to name the plants and the animals. God is tasking Adam to take care of them. Now, in Jewish tradition, in the Hebrew language, naming implies responsibility. Just like when I told the kids, when a baby is baptized here, a child is baptized, we give them a name, and we're taking a responsibility. When we name our children, instead of just calling them, hey you, we are entrusted to caring for them forever. Now here's kind of the disappointing news. Today, we're far less connected to the earth than ever before. Less than 1% of Americans are full-time farmers. I don't know a full-time farmer. Do you? The average morsel of food that we eat has traveled over 1,000 miles to reach our table. So we've lost touch with the rhythms of the earth. And I think sometimes we've lost touch with the God who made it, because thousands of species are dying off as their habitats are being destroyed, and the earth's water and air, our forest, our soils, well, they're suffering from pollution and just being totally depleted. Now get this, Americans use 38 billion plastic water bottles. 38 billion of these little suckers each year, and they usually end up in landfills. Meanwhile, over 1 billion people across the planet, they lack clean water, and that causes diseases and causes people to die. Now, in the United States, we make up about 4.5% of the world's population, but we contribute over 25% of global greenhouse emissions. So here in the States, we bear a significant moral responsibility to heal the earth's wounds. There's a Jewish wisdom story which I think really illustrates that point. And the story goes like this. There's a group of people traveling on a boat. And one of the guys takes out like a hand drill, and he begins to drill a hole beneath himself. Well, his companions on the boat say, "Hey, why are you doing this?" And the man replies, "Don't worry about it. What concern is it of yours? I'm just drilling under my own seat, right?" And of course, the people on the boat reply, "Because you're going to sink all of us with it." Sometimes we treat the planet in the same way. We don't really realize that our actions are going to impact children across the world. Now I'm going to share an inspirational story with you, one that I've shared a few years ago, but it's worth repeating. So pretend you're a child and you're sitting down for story time now. And this story is called Higgins, A Drop with a Dream. So relax and hear this story. Once upon a time, there was a drop of water named Higgins. And Higgins lived in a valley where it had not rained in a very long time. And so the lovely green grass was turning brown, and the beautiful flowers were wilting, and all the trees had started to droop. But Higgins had a dream that one day the valley would be a beautiful place again. But what could he do? After all, he was only a drop of water. One day, as he was walking by a rusty old bucket, Higgins got an idea. If enough drops of water got together in this bucket, Higgins thought, then there would be enough water to sprinkle a few flowers and help them grow again. So eagerly, Higgins told everybody his great idea, but everybody thought he was being a fool. And so Higgins decided he needed to do something to convince the others that he was right. And he said to them, "I don't know about you, but I'm getting into the bucket." And so Higgins ran as hard as he could. He hopped up in the air, and he landed with a kerplunk in the bottom of the bucket. And there he sat, just a drop in a bucket. For a long time, Higgins was very lonely. But after a while, some of the other drops could see that the grass was dying, and the flowers were wilting, and the trees were drooping, and they all agreed that something must be done. And suddenly one drop shouted, "I'm going to the bucket with Higgins." And he leaped in the air and landed kerplunk in the bucket. And two other drops yelled, wait for us. And they hopped in the air and they landed in the bucket. And then more and more drops came from all around and they hopped into the bucket. And soon the bucket was completely full of water. But there were still more drops who wanted to join. And so they found other buckets to hop into. And long after a while, there were thousands of buckets of water. And then along came a holy and powerful breeze that blew over all the buckets, and the water flowed together to make a mighty stream. And everywhere where the water flowed, the grass turned green again, and the flowers bloomed, and the trees stood up straight and tall once more. All of this happened because Higgins knew that although he was just a drop in the bucket, enough drops in the bucket make a bucket full. And when there are enough buckets and the holy wind is behind them, then justice will roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. As people of faith, we are called to be like Higgins, to work together to be stewards of God's good earth. We need to take our responsibility seriously to take care of all of creation. The health of the planet depends on us, and that can feel overwhelming, can't it? After all, I don't know about you, but sometimes I have a hard enough time just managing my own life. But perhaps when we pause and just for a moment turn our attention away from all of our worries and our daily concerns, and we just think about maybe one concrete action we can do to honor God and take care of our planet, well, then I think when we do that, we feel empowered. And we recognize that just as we can be empowered to help our planet, we can be empowered in other aspects of our life. It becomes kind of contagious. Remember the saying, the expression, how do we eat an elephant? How do we eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's right. You can't solve all of creation's very real problems on your own, can you? You can't even solve your own very real problems all by yourself. But when it comes to the planet, you can take small daily actions, like using reusable water bottles or recycling or planting a garden or planting your little earth. These little concrete actions really do make a difference. And when we are reminded that through small steps we can make a difference to aid our planet, then maybe we can be encouraged that in all the other areas of our lives where we struggle, well, in those areas we too can take concrete steps to make a difference. So think back for a moment of that place where, when you were a child, where you experienced nature. And then think of those places where you today experience God's goodness, and you look around and you say, it's good. And then imagine that you can make a difference to preserve that place. And imagine that you can make a difference in your own life with the issues that you are struggling with. Because the good news is, we never face life in a vacuum. We're never totally on our own. No, we can follow the example of Jesus, and we can know that our God is with us every step of the way. And my friends, we can feel confident knowing that nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible when God is in the mix. So let us continue to honor the story from Genesis and to look for ways to protect God's beautiful and good creation. Let it be so. Amen.